Stay calm.
Stay compassionate.
Stay hopeful.
Stay helpful.
Stay informed.
Stay grateful.
Stay active.
Stay well.
Stay home.
Stay with News 7 KWWL. We've got you covered.
So the eyes of the world still on our state tonight, but the caucus reporting disaster could certainly cost Iowa its long status as first in the nation in the next presidential cycle.
The Iowa Democratic Party, of course, taking full blame for the Caucus Night fiasco, as we have mentioned, but many questions still loom.
With that in mind, let's go live right now to KWWL reporter Travis Breeze. He is still live tonight for us at the Media Center in downtown Des Moines. Let's talk about the mood here tonight, because it has to be a very interesting one 24 hours later, Travis.
Ron and Abby, there's probably only about 5 reporters here left at the Media Filing Center right now, but
over the next half hour, we're going to talk about everything you need to know in order to stay safe during severe weather season. We had an early start to severe weather season this year. 6 tornadoes in eastern Iowa on March 28th.
At this hour, hundreds of people are marching through downtown Iowa City tonight. They are protesting police brutality. The third night in a row there has been a march through the community. With that in mind, let's go live right now to KWWL Iowa City area reporter Travis Breeze. He is live in downtown Iowa City tonight to tell us more about the late developments there.
Ron, these demonstrators have been going through downtown chanting the names of African Americans who have been killed by police throughout the United States, trying to make people here aware of their struggle. Gone back about 100 yards from where the police line is. No one's really retreating. Well, they are, but it doesn't appear they're leaving. People are in pain right now. Everyone's coughing. Oh, the people are bent over, coughing. My eyes are killing me right now.
Is this the kind of moment that you want to keep perpetuating, that you want these protests to kind of, bring people together and not necessarily be represented just by, kind of those small agitators that we've been hearing about?
Definitely. This should be the culmination of every night of protest. I believe in protesting, I believe in standing, but you have to have some sort of order, you have to have some sort of context so that the people know what they're marching for in the context of why they're marching.
Rough winds ripped through the area around 12:30 today, lasting nearly an hour.
KWW reporter Ashley Neighbor was hunkered down in our KWW office in Cedar Rapids, but right now she's live with a look at some of the Linn County damage. Ashley.
Abby and Ron, I'm live in downtown Cedar Rapids. I'm here on 1st Street and 3rd Avenue, and behind me, I'll step out of the way a little bit, is this old vacant commercial building with a partial wall collapse.
All right, for everyone at home, we want you to stop what you're doing and take a look at this. You are seeing infrared camera shots from our storm chaser vehicle right now. You can see these images as we drive around the west side of Cedar Rapids, right off of 380.
So you see the little discoloration in there. I know it may be very subtle, but it is enough to notice that right in here, and here's Des Moines, here's Waterloo, and right in here, sort of like a little lighter color green and a little lighter color green, that is all the corn that is knocked down. So you can see how widespread this is.
But the biggest disappointment to some folks is the mayor's response to the derecho. It's been 8 days since the storm hit Iowa, and with no electricity to power lines wrapped around tree debris, the derecho has left the city of Hiawatha devastated. But instead of seeing urgent response, some locals say it's been quite the opposite. And 25-year resident Doug Dix says they are looking for leadership.
Mayor tells us he doesn't even know we have a problem. So that told us that our own city didn't even care about us.
Right now with me to talk about the circumstances of his city is Mayor Bill Bennett himself. He's been with us all morning long to talk about his perspective of the aftermath. So thank you for being here all morning long. I know it's been a tough situation for you guys as a city, but I just want to ask you, with the damages that are here, what is your plan going forward?
Meanwhile, we are learning State Farm has had more than 23,000 claims, both home and auto, filed in the state since August 10th. Of course, that's the day the derecho hit. Now, you're taking a look at just some of that damage from our KWWL drone. Really, this is when we can see the magnitude of what has been experienced. Now, just a reminder, the numbers we're talking about here are for just State Farm customers. Now, this is over the town of Keystone, as you can see right there. And again, this is a live look. Look at some of those bins. And it's certainly a situation where they need help. And we've been talking about this a lot. You can help. There are many ways listed on our website, KWWL.com.
As you mentioned, some of these families have been out here for 6 days, ever since this storm hit, waiting for help that some worry now may never come.
I knew somebody. I knew help.
When Monday's storm hit Cedar Terrace apartments, it took the complex's roof with it, leaving dozens of families homeless.
Nobody has place to go. They don't have no money either. We don't have no money. We live in paycheck to paycheck.
And even though there are shelters set up in the city, for some of these families, that's not an option if they want to stay together. With the city about the conditions at Cedar Terrace, no one was available to go on camera, but they did tell us there are multiple shelters in place, including the Veterans Building for people who are displaced. They also said the Red Cross will shuttle people to the Veterans Center. We did see the Red Cross here earlier today, but that was for roughly half an hour to an hour, handing out supplies. We did not see them move any residents, and we are still continuing to wait and hear more details about what the future is for these residents. The property manager also spoke with us, says she is working on getting them their security deposit back. Reporting live from Cedar Rapids, News 7 KWWL, I'm Kristen Crowley. Abby, back to you.
This is the park. I want to show you what we're seeing here. This is a giant tree that came down here in City Square Park, took out part of the roof of the pavilion. As you can see, it was a nice park area for rental, and the tree also uprooted, took out parts of the sidewalk as well. We see a couple picnic tables that have been crushed by the falling tree, parts of the roof there.
This is Marian Christian Church on 10th and McGowan Boulevard in Marion. But if you just take a look behind me, the tree was only feet away from the building before it fell.
Ron Steele joins us tonight live from Cedar Rapids in the heart of the damage from last Monday's storm. Ron, tell us what's the scene there this evening.
Yeah, Ivy, I'll tell you, Colin's going to have to wait another day because some things just come ahead of what we're doing here at the station, and one of those is storm coverage. I'm right now, as you can see behind me, I'm at Cedar Terrace, the big apartment complex out in the southwest part of the town. In fact, we're just off of 12th Avenue Southwest. Let me just step back real quickly. The residents here, as you mentioned, some have been sleeping in tents. They've had no electricity, a lot of damage out here. The roofs are off on many of these big buildings out here at Cedar Terrace.
Welcome to Eastern Iowa United. Tonight, all 3 Eastern Iowa TV stations come together for a rare live broadcast event. KCRG's Nicole Agee, KGAN's Mitch Fick, and KWWL's Ron Steele are live from the Ladd Library in Cedar Rapids to highlight the work being done by the United Way to help recover and rebuild, and how you can make a difference right now. This is Eastern Iowa United.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for this unprecedented partnership among broadcasters here in Eastern Iowa.
That's right, Nicole. In fact, you know, in times of trouble, in times where we're all having to come together, that's exactly what we do. We focus on what's really important, and right now...
Oh, good drive. 12-year-old Tommy Romberg rode out the storm in his parents' basement last week.
I just remember the crazy winds. The sky was so black, trees just falling down everywhere. Branches down, trees down. You couldn't even see across, like, the road. It was just covered in branches.
When the family emerged, what they found was a mess.
Me, my dad, and my brothers, and just everyone worked to clean everything up.
In all the downed branches and trees, Tommy was looking for something specific. And when he found it, he knew exactly what he was going to do with it.
And that's when the real work began.
So I just grabbed the best piece of wood I could find, and I just started whittling.
Tommy put in more than 10 hours of work over 3 days.
It was really hard. I got blisters.
And just like Roy Hobbs' Wonder Boy emerged from a lightning-fallen tree in the natural, Tommy Romberg fashioned the great derecho out of debris left by the storm.
He gets something in his mind and he just decides to do it.
Now, less than 3 weeks until Election Day, November 3rd, the president is campaigning hard in his re-election bid. With that in mind, let's go live right now to KWWL reporter Colin Dorsey. He's at the Des Moines International Airport for us tonight, where President Trump hopes to rally his base and send them onto the polls. Colin.
Abby, Ron, for President Trump's supporters, it's been a long day of waiting. We got here at about 9:30 this morning, and people were already lined up outside the Des Moines International Airport for their chance to see President Trump speak.
The president's rally in Dubuque today was one of several stops that he's making on this Sunday. KWWL's Daniel Perot was there and tells us how the president made his final pitch to Iowa voters.
Despite cold temperatures and a wicked wind, thousands of the president's supporters are packed shoulder to shoulder here on the tarmac at the Dubuque region.
Well, thank you very much. I might have missed it, but I don't think you answered my question. What's the break-even price for soybeans in Iowa? You grew up on a farm. You should know this.
I think you had asked about corn, and it depends on.
I asked her corn.
It depends on what the inputs are, but probably about $5.50.
Well, you're a couple dollars off, I think, here because it's 10:05. So we'll move on to something else then.
And I don't think Ms. Greenfield answered either.
She actually did. With the price of corn, we'd asked for the price of soybeans from you, Senator. You want to take another crack at it?
No, thank you.
And we do have Team 7 coverage throughout the night. Our team across the state will be bringing reports on the different local and district races, as well as reports from Des Moines, where the U.S. Senate candidates are gathering. Well, also standing by live for us in Des Moines right now is Team 7's Taylor Bessel. He today is following Senator Joni Ernst's campaign. Taylor, fill us in. What's the latest?
Well, Ron and Abby, I want to kind of give you a look at what's going on here. It's very different than what Colin is seeing. Take a look at this crowd. While it may not be the largest crowd, obviously the crowd cheering right now as President Trump secures another state. Fox News is calling that in the background. The crowd very riled up and enthusiastic about any Republican victory tonight.
Today, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us here tonight live for a KWWL special report, Coronavirus Facts, Not Fears. I'm Ron Steele.
And I'm Abby Turpin. Several big announcements from the Trump administration concerning the coronavirus today. Over the next half hour, we will be talking with local health professionals, asking the big questions that are important to you.
Some of the disturbing details are coming out in this lawsuit that Tyson managers allegedly bet on how many Tyson workers would contract COVID-19.
Colin, Abby, Tyson made that announcement today, saying those managers aren't reflective of the company's core values. The company citing privacy reasons for why their names weren't released. Tyson says former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder will continue to work with them to determine how to improve things at the Waterloo plant. Now, Holder led that independent investigation that you mentioned into those allegations that plant leaders bet money on how many employees would contract COVID-19.
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock this Tuesday morning. I'm Daniel Wynn.
And I'm Olivia Schmidt. Of course, things looking a little different this morning as we continue our social distancing at KWWL. So today I will be at the Elks Lodge in Waterloo.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Steele reporting live tonight from the KWWL building.
And I'm Abby Turpin. I'm joining in from a remote location this evening as we do our part to continue to social distance in this age of COVID-19.
The sports world has gone on nearly a complete hiatus, of course, due to public health measures enacted to battle the coronavirus pandemic. One of the first dominoes to fall, the remainder of the Big Ten men's basketball tournament. Now, Rick Coleman had already made his way to Indianapolis and has more on what was a surreal day.
Thank you. I'm right outside of Bankers Life Fieldhouse here in Indianapolis. 8 teams are supposed to play 4 games today in the Big Ten men's basketball.
Live from News 7 KWWL, this is Friday Night Heroes, presented by Rolling Ford in Shell Rock.
Believe it or not, we made it. Welcome to week 1 of the 2020 high school football season right here on Friday Night Heroes. For many schools, Mark Woodley joins us now live from Denver with this game of the week.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Rick, our first matchup of 2020
This holiday season, stay safe.
Stay connected.
Stay kind.
Stay compassionate.
Stay considerate.
Stay generous.
Stay grateful.
Stay positive.
Stay peaceful. Stay hopeful.
Stay helpful.
Stay happy.
Stay cheerful.
Stay caring.
Stay
grateful.
Stay strong.
Stay loving.
Stay with News 7 KWWL. We've got you covered.
Live from News 7 KWWL, we've got you covered. This is KWWL News at 6.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Steele.
And I'm Abby Turpin. Thank you for joining us.
Well, of course, eyes of the world on our state of Iowa at this hour and tonight, as Iowans from both parties will proclaim whom they support as their party's nominee for president. Tonight is the first in the nation Iowa caucuses for both parties. In just about an hour now, Iowans will signal their supports for the candidates, hoping that they will be on the ballot for president in November. And here's a look at the setup going on in Des Moines earlier tonight.
And now let's take a live look. This is out of Lynn County, where caucusing will begin in a little less than 1 hour. All is quiet there right now, but of course this is what they call the calm before the storm.
And one of our coverage areas, of course, tonight will be Johnson County, as Johnson County Democrats are getting ready to make their decisions known on whom they will align with here in just about 1 hour.
Now, we do have Team 7 coverage all across the state for you tonight. Reporters are positioned in Iowa City, Waterloo, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, and Des Moines, covering, of course, the Democratic and Republican caucuses in our state tonight. And, of course, a lot of eyes on the Democratic caucuses tonight because there are changes coming. There will be 3 results reported tonight and only 1 realignment.
Well, first off, tonight here live at 6 o'clock, we're going to head to Des Moines, where KWWL reporter Colin Dorsey and Matt Breen of our sister station KTIV are standing by with more on the Super Bowl of politics and a big development over the weekend because the Register decided to pull its poll.
Good evening from Des Moines, where we are 1 hour away from the Iowa caucuses as folks across the state of Iowa gather in 1,681 caucus sites in schools, homes, and churches to caucus for their preferred candidate. This, Colin, is something that has been months, if not years, in the making.
Yeah, definitely an important process for Iowans and the nation alike, as the Iowa caucus, of course, we know, plays a very crucial role in presidential politics.
It certainly does, and of course, the front runners in most polls of late got out aggressively today to make their closing argument. Among them, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren, making that closing argument to caucus goers.
And I believe very strongly.
Bernie Sanders came out swinging during one of his final campaign stops before Monday night's Iowa caucus, taking aim at President Donald Trump and an administration that believed they're above the law.
We do not want a president who has contempt for the Constitution, contempt for the rule of law, contempt for democracy.
Joe Biden doubled down on Sanders' argument during my one-on-one interview Monday morning, saying, quote, our democracy is at risk, end quote, if President Trump is reelected.
You see how he has divided the country, how he has alienated us from our friends around the world, how he's embraced dictators. I just think it's extremely, extremely destabilizing if he is elected for 4 more years. I think it's changed the nature of who we are as a country.
While he didn't mention the president by name, Pete Buttigieg alluded to a move away from an administration occupying the presidency.
I'm running for this office because I believe that the presidency has a purpose, and that the purpose of the presidency is not the glorification of the president. It is the empowerment and the unification of the American people.
Elizabeth Warren's goal is to break that highest and hardest of glass ceilings and bring America's middle class with her.
When I made the decision to get into this race, it was about who I'd be fighting for. It's who I've been fighting for all my life. It's about working families. It's about trying to make this economy work for everyone.
But to accomplish their goals, these candidates need a strong showing in Iowa.
Years or decades ago.
Those 4 candidates have hovered near the tops of most major polls in the Hawkeye State, but none got a boost from the Des Moines Register's final poll. It was expected to be released on Saturday, but because of possible irregularities in the poll, that poll was pulled. The irregularities, we've learned, it's possible that Pete Buttigieg's name was left off a caller list that a poll presenter made to one of the caucus goers in eastern Iowa.
And of course, that poll often referred to as the most consequential poll in presidential politics, and we both know
at how important polls are to presidential campaigns. And of course, with a total of 11 Democratic candidates still in the race for that spot, those polls can mean everything. And it will be a struggle for some of those candidates not in the top to garner that 15%, that magic number, to make it through the caucus process. You've mentioned those front runners, but what about the others? Candidate Tom Steyer making himself available for media interviews today in one last grasp for support.
People to go to caucuses that you never thought would go to caucuses. Get them out there.
It's an effort to bypass the top 4 candidates to earn the Democratic nomination. A stretch that's unlikely, but getting to a top position in the Iowa caucus could mean a shot of energy into their campaign. Senator Amy Klobuchar back in Washington today, but was in Des Moines Sunday stumping for support.
That the people of Iowa understand, when I couldn't be here all last week, that I had a job to do, and that they get that because I wasn't there, you just have to double down on your work.
Candidate Tom Steyer, meanwhile, has failed to break 5% in any Iowa-only poll.
I am looking to get momentum coming out of Iowa.
Andrew Yang unable to appear at his Waterloo stop, instead Skyping in yesterday, holding his final caucus rally Saturday in Des Moines.
Thrilled to be here this close to voting.
He's back in the state visiting a Des Moines area precinct ahead of tonight's caucus. Steyer remaining optimistic, not laying out plans if he doesn't make it through as a viable candidate.
Look, all I've been focused on is doing as well as possible and seeing it, and we don't have any plans like that. Actually, what my goal is doing exactly what I'm doing now, making my case to as many Iowans that I am the person who can beat Mr. Trump in the fall.
Now, Klobuchar has been polling 5th in the most recent Iowa polls behind the 4 frontrunners. And it's also important to mention that former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who has mostly ignored the state of Iowa, is polling fairly well in the national polls. Now, once again, the Iowa caucus isn't about winning. You don't win the Iowa caucus, but you certainly can lose. Performing poorly in the Iowa caucus can cost you supporters, and even more importantly, donations. Those walk away, and the life can quickly fall out of a campaign.
And we should know in several hours who each party's preferred presidential candidate is. Caucusing begins at 7. Republicans conduct a straw poll. Their results often come more quickly. Democrats, because they do a first and second preference, often take a bit longer. But we expect to have results for you shortly before 9 o'clock tonight. For Colin Dorsey, I'm Matt Breen. We're live in Des Moines. Now back to you.
Matt, Colin, hey, thank you very much. We're going to talk with Chris Larimer about the Register's decision to pull that poll. Really significant development over the weekend for certain.
And we will have much more from Des Moines coming up in just a moment, but we will return to that in just a moment. But we want to get to the all-important Caucus Night forecast. Here's Chief Meteorologist Mark Schnackenberg.
No problems getting out to the caucus because we got pretty quiet weather. We've got a little breezy condition out there right now. Winds about 10, 20 miles an hour from the northerly direction. As for the temperatures for this time of the year, temperatures in the 30s to about 40 degrees is not too bad. 35 in Waterloo, 40 in Iowa City, 37 in Dubuque. We had sunshine this morning, but clouds have been rolling back into the picture, and those clouds will stick around as we head through the overnight hours. Temperatures eventually dropping down into the lower 20s. So if you're heading out this evening, expect temperatures to be into the low 30s and then eventually upper 20s if you're staying out till midnight. We'll talk about a pretty quiet Storm Track 7 forecast in just a bit.
Okay, Margie, thank you very much. You know, tonight, Iowa Democrats will align themselves behind their favorite candidates.
With many people keeping their eyes on Black Hawk County. We now send things to KWWL reporter Olivia Schmidt. She's live in Black Hawk County with a look ahead at tonight's caucus.
Yeah, right now we're inside Irving Elementary in Waterloo, less than 1 hour away from the day we've been talking about for months now. And as you can see, organizers are busy getting this cafeteria ready. One woman telling me, welcome aboard the crazy train. This afternoon, I met with Vicki Brown. She's the chair of the Black Hawk County Democrats. She says Democrats are expecting a big turnout. Registration numbers are way up compared to 2016. Brown says do not stay home tonight. She's calling this caucus the most important one in her lifetime. She tells me people are ready for a big change.
Our country, in my opinion, is divided, so divided. And it's just time for us to unite. And the Democrats are the ones to unite the country right now.
Brown also says Black Hawk County is important tonight. Many candidates made stops here along their campaign trail. She says people will be curious about how things shake up in one of Iowa's largest counties. Now, at this point, there are still so many candidates left in the field, so the big question on everyone's mind right now, who's going to end up on top? Brown says at this point she thinks it's really a toss-up. Live in Waterloo, Olivia Schmidt, News 7 KWWL.
Olivia, thank you very much. And doors are now open at Republican caucus locations in Black Hawk County as well. Party leaders are expecting roughly 5,000 caucus goers tonight. Black Hawk County Republican Chair Leanne Saul says there's a big push for Republican voters as the impeachment trial against President Trump continues.
The impeachment has gotten people fired up. So I have been having phone calls all day. Where can I get a Trump sign? Where are we caucusing at? And they're pretty excited.
Now, there are 10 Republican caucus locations in Black Hawk County. Also, a reminder, if you have not registered to vote yet, you can do that at your caucus location.
So we've been giving you a taste of what the caucus is looking like in the Cedar Valley and at the state capital of Des Moines.
And now let's go ahead and take a look at what the Democrats in Dubuque County are looking like.
KWWL reporter Vinnie Lowry is located downtown Dubuque right now, live for us. And Vinnie showing us how Democrats in Dubuque County and the Tri-States are preparing for tonight's big event.
I'm currently in precinct 17 at Northeast Iowa Community College, and there's not a whole lot of people here just yet, but that's certainly about to change. The room that I'm currently standing in was actually 2 precinct sites in 2016, but this time around they've decided just to make it 1 precinct. It was just a little bit too cramped 4 years ago. They expect around 150 people in the room in under an hour. Dubuque Democratic Party Chair Steve Drahozal, who's been through 6 caucuses, says they'll be really focusing on the new rules for the caucus.
Big thing that's a challenge is people may come in and they're used to being uncommitted because they kind of want to see what's going on. This time, if uncommitted is viable, you cannot change because any viable group, once you're in that viable group, you're locked in. So we want people to understand that.
Drahozal also says the main topics many will be debating tonight is the topic of health care. He also says making a prediction on tonight is a toss-up to all the candidates. And while a lot of the parties here are certainly putting up last-minute signage and solidifying the process to caucus, it's always a reminder to make sure you're in line by 7 o'clock tonight to make sure you can go out and caucus. Live in Dubuque, Vinnie Lowry, News 7 KWWL.
Vinnie, thanks for the update tonight live from Dubuque. By the way, the University of Dubuque is one of the 5 locations hosting a Republican caucus in Dubuque County tonight. Other locations include the Piazza Community Center, Table Mount Elementary School, Beckman High School out in Dyersville will host a GOP caucus, and Eisenhower Elementary. Now, for Republicans, 2016 President Trump proved to be the most popular among Dubuque County Republicans. He got 27% of support from the caucus goers 4 years ago tonight. We'll have a live report from the University of Dubuque in our telecast here this evening.
Let's turn our attention now to Lynn County. Here's a look at Taft Middle School. This is a unique location where both the Republicans and Democrats are caucusing under one roof. The Democrats were already setting up, preparing for the night, and Republicans, of course, have much less to set up considering the style of caucusing is different. Party leaders are expecting a big turnout tonight. This is going to be a big party building exercise, we could say, not just picking the candidate, but party platforms and volunteers to represent Republicans in the county convention.
Well, right now, let's send things over to KWWL reporter Travis Breeze in Johnson County with that very unique setup with both parties in the same location.
Ron and Abby, I am at Iowa City Precinct 6. That is at the Mercer Park Gym here on the southeast side of town. That's one of 24 locations for Democratic caucus goers around Iowa City. Now, we've been here about 30 minutes and looks like there's maybe a little bit over 100 supporters here right now in the gym. Some of the Democrats are starting to get in their corners for their candidates. Now, organizers for the Democratic Party here in Johnson County say that parking was a problem at several locations in 2016. Iowa City has transit routes to some of the remote locations tonight to help with that. Organizers also say the University of Iowa has cooperated better with them this cycle, and if everything goes well, they hope to set some records tonight.
We're expecting several thousand registrations. I think we'll probably set a new all-time voter registration record and probably an all-time percentage for Democrats record tonight.
Caucus organizer John Deeth also says he expects Iowa City Precinct 17, that one is at City High School, to be the highest turnout in the state. Now, a lot of those registrations that Deeth was hoping to get tonight will be from college students. Now, data released from the Johnson County auditor this past weekend said about 40% of registered voters in the county identified as Democrats and about 17 were Republicans. Reporting live in Johnson County, Travis Breeze, News 7 KWWL.
Have a great time there at Mercer Park Gym tonight, Travis. Looking forward to your reports. And later tonight, you'll find the caucus results from every county in the KWW viewing area live online on KWWL.com.
Coming up here at 6 o'clock, we will continue our Team 7 caucus coverage. KWW reporter Taylor Vessel will join us live from Des Moines.
And right now, let's take a live look at Des Moines. The headquarters of the counting will begin in a couple of hours here from the Iowa caucuses, which officially get underway at 7 o'clock tonight. We'll be right back with more coverage in just a moment.
This is KWWL News at 6 with Ron Steele, Abby Turpin, Storm Track 7 Chief Meteorologist Mark Schnackenberg, and Sports with Rick Coleman. We've got you covered.
Welcome back. We continue our caucus coverage by looking at the electability of the candidates.
We're going to send things over right now live to KWWL reporter Taylor Vessel live in Des Moines to talk about this electability, because ultimately for Democrats this year, that has to be top of mind.
And one lady gets a lot of face time with the Democrats.
Ron and Abby, coming to Iowa is really a way to garner initial support for those candidates simply because Iowa is first. Now, right now, when we talk about a strength of a candidate, it's really synonymous with the term electability. Now, that's a term we hear a lot in a presidential campaign, and nearly every poll talks about it. For the Democrats, typically, it's asked if the respondent thinks a candidate can take on President Trump and win. Rich Payne Caulfield at Drake University believes Democratic voters are being cautious in 2020.
A lot of those people concerned with electability went with Hillary Clinton. As it turned out, that didn't work. And so many of them in 2020 have spent an amazing amount of time and energy going to visit with the candidates, asking questions, trying to assess who can win in 2020. And they have very different assessments.
Now, one of the candidates who has used electability as a big part of his message is former Vice President Joe Biden, and we will see if Iowans agree. Now, of course, there's something really interesting about the fact that Iowans will likely not throw their support behind former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who is polling high nationally. I asked Caulfield about him. She says she's watching him, and he could be a monkey wrench in this entire race. Reporting live in Des Moines, Taylor Vessel, News 7 KWWL.
Taylor, thank you. And don't forget, later on tonight, you can find all of the caucus results for each county in our viewing area online on our website, KWWL.com.
And stay with us here live tonight at 6:18, because coming up, we're going to hear right from our KWWL political analyst, Dr. Chris Larimer of the University of Northern Iowa. That's coming up next.
We will continue our caucus 2020 coverage now by sending things over to Ron, who is joined by our political analyst, Dr. Chris Larimer.
Hey, Abby, thanks very much. And Chris, we've talked about the big changes, 3 different results coming in at 3 different times tonight. A lot of people have said to me, why the changes?
Well, this goes back to a long criticism with the Democratic caucuses in terms of how open are they to everyone to participate, because they're held on a weeknight, you know, for an extended period of time, right? It takes a lot to actually get out to the caucuses, and so there's always been the question about participation, but that really ramped up after the 2016 Iowa caucuses, with Bernie Sanders and even Hillary Clinton both criticizing the process. And so the National Democratic Party put together a committee to talk about these changes, and that any state that was going to hold a caucus in 2020 had to be more transparent and open. And the Iowa Democratic Party initially tried with the virtual caucuses, but those were ruled to be too susceptible to cybersecurity issues, and so now they switched to the satellite caucuses and reporting these preference group numbers.
In 2012, the Des Moines Register Iowa poll gave Rick Santorum a huge surge right the day before the caucuses. The Register, in a dramatic move, canceled the poll this year. I suspect that Amy Klobuchar's campaign was devastated by that.
Well, I think a lot of campaigns were, because for exactly the reason you talked about. With Rick Santorum in 2012, he had not been in the top 3 in prior polls, but in the last 2 days of that poll, when it was in the field, he suddenly moved into second place. And so you think about all the indecision that's out there among likely Democratic caucus goers this year, whereas 30 to 40% say they're still open to being persuaded. Well, if they were looking for that last poll to see what candidate had momentum to give them a little more certainty going into caucus night, you know, they didn't get that last data point.
It's too bad, because that would be, I mean, that kind of sets the stage for a dramatic night, too. A lot of surprises. Okay, we heard Taylor Vessel talk about electability. Already on our station, ads are running against Bernie Sanders, saying he can't win against Trump. How does he overcome that?
I think it's a real challenge. I think that when you look at the polls and you look at why caucus goers or other voters are even supporting Bernie Sanders versus someone like a Joe Biden, there are different reasons for it. And it gets back to that, you know, voting based on more principle or your ideology versus voting based on electability. In the Des Moines Register poll that they did earlier in January, there's about a 20-point difference between Biden and Buttigieg supporters versus Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders supporters in terms of why they wanted to support them on the importance of defeating Donald Trump, right? So there's a difference there on electability, and that's going to be a challenge for Bernie Sanders going forward, because as we've talked about before, he has to re-register as a Democrat when he runs for president. Otherwise, he is registered as an independent who caucuses with the Democrats.
And he stated many times, going back years and years, I'm a socialist. I'm not a Democrat, but he is tonight anyway. We'll see how it goes.
That's right.
All right, Dr. Chris Larimer, KWWL political analyst. Can't wait to see the results come in here later tonight. Right now, let's send things back over to Abby.
All right, Ron, thank you very much. Chris, great to have you with us tonight. And we'll send things over now to Chief Meteorologist Mark Schnackenberg.
Looks to be pretty nice here through the evening hours. As for the high temperatures today, hard to believe these numbers in the 30s and 40s. Another mild day out there. Normal high should be about 29 degrees. A lot of clouds overhead here for tonight and a bit breezy. We'll do this again here tomorrow. And then as we head into the day on Wednesday, a lot of clouds around. Now, as for our conditions outside, a cloudy sky in Waterloo on our Storm Track 7 live weather network camera. We'll continue the clouds across the entire region. The big picture here showing, yes, cloudy sky across much of the nation. A couple of snow showers well off to our west. A few rain showers well off to our south and east. So all in all, pretty quiet conditions out there. Temperatures at this hour running in the 30s, and we're looking at some pretty mild numbers for this time of year. Now, as for the wind, it's out of the north at around 10 to 20 miles per hour. It'll stay that way here for tonight and into the day tomorrow. Eventually, as we get towards the evening hours, that wind will slowly subside. Tonight, we're looking at clouds around, temperatures between 16 and 24 degrees during the day tomorrow. Again, a lot of clouds, also a bit of a breeze out of the north at around 10 to 20 miles per hour. Now, as you look at your city-by-city forecast, we have dry conditions here on Wednesday. Thursday, we left dry. There's some snow chances just to our southeast. Right now, temperatures will be in the 20s, so the snow is going to be just off to our southeast. We'll stay dry for the time being. See how this plays out over the next couple of days. Friday, dry. Saturday, dry. A couple of snow showers there on Sunday. Temperatures, though, not too bad. 20s and some 30s for highs and overnight lows, mainly in the teens across eastern Iowa.
All right, Mark, thank you. Coming up next, we'll turn to sports.
Iowa Hawkeye Athletic Director Gary Barta tonight talks about his recent promotion to chair of the College Football Playoff Committee.
Now, KWWL Sports.
The college football season is still 7 months away, and Iowa Hawkeye Athletics Director Gary Barta is preparing to take on a new challenge. Barta has been named the new chairman of the College Football Playoff Committee. Now, last year, Barta served as a member of that committee. Now he's replacing outgoing chairman, Oregon Athletics Director Rob Mullins. The position is high profile, and the chairman is interviewed live every week on ESPN to discuss the decision-making process that goes into the poll. Now, Barta says he has to leave the committee room anytime the Iowa Hawkeyes are being discussed, and he says this is how the committee handles potential bias.
The coat rack that sits right outside the door, and they give you a hat, and it has your name on it. It's a plain white hat with no logo on it except your name. And they symbolically, for the first meeting, you walk through the door, and before you go in the room, you hang your hat. And symbolically, it's just a commitment from everybody in the room to look to name the best 25 teams, the top 4, and to do so without putting the bias against the teams that you might be closest to or know the most about.
Barta will serve the second of his maximum 3-year term on the committee this fall. And just a couple of hours ago this afternoon, the world champion Kansas City Chiefs arrived home from Miami. Their dramatic come from behind Super Bowl victor of the San Francisco 49ers. The Chiefs won the first Super Bowl in 50 years. It's fitting the 24-year-old Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, was not on the flight. Instead, he was at Disney World. Kansas City will have its championship parade on Wednesday, and I know I'm slightly biased. That had to be the best Super Bowl game I've ever watched.
Slightly?
Wow. Just slightly.
Congratulations. How many years did you wait for it? 50? All right.
I won't say how old I was then.
We're excited for you, though, because you are a huge fan. I mean, your basement is full of just Chief stuff. So.
Yeah, it is. My wife doesn't like that.
You're the biggest Chief fan I know, Rhea. Maybe, except maybe Ed Podolak. I don't know.
Thanks for joining us.
Be careful out there.